Welcome back, everyone. We're back in the Psalms series. This is Psalm 4 called Finding Peace in Trouble. And we start off with Psalms chapter 4, verse 1. Answer me when I call to you, my righteous God. Give me relief from my distress. Have mercy on me and hear my prayer. David begins by appealing to God based on experience. My righteous God, give me relief from my distress. It suggests he's facing some kind of false accusations or an opposition, and he asks God, who has defended him before, to do so again. So this sets the tone. The speaker's confidence is rooted in the history that he's had with God. Not just hope, but actual experience in Him coming through. This is an important tool in our prayer life, or just life in general, if you want. The practice of recalling past successes. You've given me relief in this area before. You've done this before in my life, so I know you can do it again. It's a fundamental cognitive technique used in modern stress management. It interrupts the cycle of anxiety by providing evidence against the current feeling of hopelessness, triggering a shift toward resilience. When overwhelmed, pause and list two or three times in specific ways in your past with God where He's brought you through a difficult moment. And it moves your focus from feeling desperate to remembering delivery. He goes on in the verse and says, how long will you people turn my glory into shame? How long will you love delusions and seek false gods? Know that the Lord has set apart his faithful servant for himself. The Lord hears when I call to him. So now David is addressing his adversaries. Probably Saul, could be Absalom's supporters later. They're accused of pursuing illusion and falsehood, vanity, lies, empty promises, which contrast with the genuine truth that you find in God. Verse 4 says, tremble and do not sin. When you're on your beds, search your hearts and be silent. Offer the sacrifices of the righteous and trust in the Lord. This is the heart of the Psalms instruction. The command, tremble and do not sin, is so profound that it's later quoted by Paul in Ephesians 4:26. It affirms that anger is a legitimate emotion, but it must not be permitted to dictate destructive actions. The right sacrifices are not just animal offerings, but sacrifices offered with a right attitude, faith, sincerity, and trust. The instruction is search your heart and be silent. It describes this ancient practice of mindfulness and cognitive reappraisal. Lying on your bed in a quiet, it provides this opportunity for a parasympathetic nervous system to rest and digest, to activate, allowing that prefrontal cortex to process the anger and stress before reacting, thus preventing a sinful action that we would do in our anger. When you feel the anger rising, say, stop, drop, and ponder. Stop, drop, and ponder. Take a moment of intentional quiet before you speak or act. Practice sacrificial trust, the act of surrendering your worry and fully entrusting this problem to God, which is greater than any offering you're ever going to get. If you can think of this as an offering of, I'm going to do it God's way. Stop, drop, and ponder. Verse 6 says, many, Lord, are asking, who will bring us prosperity? Let the light of your face shine on us. Fill my heart with joy when the grain and the new wine abound. The many represent people whose definition of good is purely materialistic. A good harvest, grain, and new wine are temporary success. David contrasts that fleeting feeling, that external joy, with the internal spiritual joy that God provides. This verse is touching on the concept of what we call the hedonic treadmill, the observation that humans quickly return to a baseline level of happiness despite major positive or negative events. The joy from a great harvest, grain and new wine, is temporary. David's experience points to a set point of joy rooted in spiritual well being that's more stable and ultimately deeper than any material pleasure that provides that spike or that temporary negative thing that happens that provides that negative. He says, keep that positive joy. Do not seek happiness in the fleeting satisfaction of grain and new wine, or in our case, money, possessions, and status. Instead, pray for the light of your face, the experiential awareness of God's presence and favor, as this is the source of an unshakable, sustaining joy that transcends circumstances. In verse 8, it says, in peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety. This is the perfect ending to an evening prayer. After the day's turmoil, self examination, and spiritual commitment, the speaker concludes with absolute peace and the assurance of sleep. The final line emphasizes, for you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety. The ability to lie down and sleep in peace. It's a biological goal of stress reduction, deep restorative sleep, the non REM and REM cycles. It is impossible when the sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight or flight, is active and going in our mind. The act of fully trusting God, as described in these verses, effectively shuts off our stress response, physically allowing the body and the mind to achieve the necessary rest and healing. Before you go to sleep tonight, practice a spiritual handoff. Consciously name the worries and the fears of the troubles that are robbing your peace and offer them up to God, accepting the truth that your safety and rest depend on His power alone, not your ability to solve every problem overnight. This is the path to truly restorative sleep. Psalm 4 is a powerful guide from anxiety, verses 1 and 2, to self control and trust in verses 4 and 5, to unshakable peace in verse 8, and then instructs us to process our anger wisely, prioritize spiritual value over material gain, and ultimately find our security in God's presence, which leads to deep rest. It's an incredible psalm. There's so much there, so much depth. But at the end of the day, it's about rest. Rest in Him, trust in Him. And then you can sleep. We can sleep because we know He's got us. He's got us. Hope you guys are getting something out of these Psalms messages. We'll continue to work through them and read ahead, subscribe, like, all that stuff. See you next time. Thanks. Thanks for watching.